The Snow Queen of Ebu. In the heart of Nigeria, the village of Ebu was a place where the sun reigned supreme, and snow was nothing but a myth. Yet, unbeknownst to its people, a secret dwelled within Oya, a girl with the power to summon snow. Her parents kept her hidden from the world, knowing her gift was both a blessing and a curse. Her mother, Iyai, labored under the glow of a single lantern while the winds outside howled unnaturally. Elders whispered that the storm was a bad omen, but Iyai knew differently. She could feel the strange energy that surrounded her child even before her first cry. When Oya finally came into the world, a gust of icy wind swept through the small hut, extinguishing the lantern and chilling everyone to the bone. The midwife, trembling, gasped as frost crept up her hands when she touched the infant. Snowflakes began to fall inside the hut, settling gently on the newborn's skin without melting. "She's a child of the spirits," someone murmured in awe. But others in the room felt only fear. In a land where the sun ruled, a child who could summon snow was unnatural, perhaps even cursed. Word spread quickly through Ebu, and while some villagers were curious, many were suspicious. Rumors swirled that Oya was a gift from the gods, or perhaps a punishment. Her father, Atta, overheard whispers of people wanting to attest the child's powers or take her away to appease deities. From the moment she was born, Oya's touch brought frost, and her emotions could summon snowstorms. Her parents, fearing persecution and exploitation, wove tales of illness to explain her absence. Iyai and Atta loved their daughter fiercely, but they understood the danger she faced. In Ebu, anything that defied the natural order was met with distrust and, often, violence. The village elders spoke of powerful leaders from distant lands who would pay handsomely, or wage war, for a child with such abilities. To protect Oya, her parents made a painful decision: they would hide her from the world. They told the villagers that their daughter was born sickly and frail, unable to leave the house. Atta built a small room with thick walls to muffle the sound of her laughter or cries, and Iyai kept her busy with stories and games, always careful to explain why she couldn't step outside. "We are keeping you safe, my sweet snowflake," Iyai would say. "The world is not ready for you yet." But as Oya grew, so did her powers. Her emotions, joy, anger, or sadness, were tied to the weather. A burst of laughter could sprinkle frost on the walls, while tears could summon flurries that chilled the entire house. Each incident made her parents more fearful, and their restrictions grew tighter. By the time she was a teenager, Oya's longing to see the outside world was unbearable. She had spent years peeking through cracks in the windows, watching children play and villagers gather at the market. Her parents' warnings about danger felt more like chains than protection. "I'm not a curse," she whispered to herself one night, staring at the frost-covered walls of her room. "I'm just different." Driven by curiosity and a deep yearning for freedom, Oya waited until her parents were asleep. She slipped out of the house, her bare feet crunching on the frost her emotions left behind. The cool night air filled her lungs as she stepped into the village for the first time, her heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. What she didn't know was that her first taste of freedom would set into motion events that would change her life and the fate of Ebu forever. As she wandered under the moonlight, she stumbled upon a boy's tunica. His confident grin and easy charm intrigued her. Claiming to be a humble farmer's son, he was far from ordinary. Unbeknownst to Uyor, Tunica was the son of the ruthless King Akbar, a man obsessed with finding the mythical snow maiden to harvest her powers and secure his dominion. Uyor and Tunica's nightly meetings became a secret of their own. She shared her dreams, her powers, and her longing for freedom, while Tunica listened, torn between his growing affection for her and his duty to his father. For weeks, their bond deepened, but shadows loomed over them. Uyor began to notice strange men lurking in the village, their eyes always watching. One fateful night, the peace shattered. Soldiers stormed Ebu, their torches lighting the darkness. Uyor's parents fought to hide her, but it was too late. She was dragged away, kicking and screaming, as the villagers watched in terror. It was then that she saw him, Tunica, standing among the soldiers, his face filled with guilt. At the palace, Uyor was thrown into a cell, cold and alone. The truth unraveled. Tunica wasn't the farmer's son but the prince, sent to lure her to his father. King Akbar, a figure of malice and greed, revealed his plan to sacrifice her, binding her powers to him forever. Uyor's heart broke, not just from Tunica's betrayal, but from the cruelty of a world that saw her only as a tool. Meanwhile, Tunica wrestled with his conscience. He had followed orders, but in Uyor, he had found something real, a love that defied his father's schemes. As the sacrifice ceremony neared, Tunica made a choice. Under the cover of night, he freed Uyor, his whispers urgent and filled with regret. Tunica's plan to free Uyor was risky and required careful deception. As the son of King Akbar, he had access to parts of the palace that others did not, but the guards were loyal to his father and would not hesitate to report any suspicious behavior. Tunica knew he couldn't act alone, so he quietly enlisted the help of a trusted palace servant, an elderly woman named Nkechi, who had always been kind to him and despised the king's cruelty. Tunica knew the guards were most vigilant at night, especially around Uyor's cell in the dungeons. To divert their attention, he had Nkechi orchestrate a small fire in the palace kitchen. As smoke began to rise and panic spread, the guards stationed near Uyor's cell were called away to assist in controlling the blaze. With the guards distracted, Tunica disguised himself as a soldier. He donned a cloak and helmet, covering his face to avoid recognition. Carrying a tray of food laced with sleeping herbs, he approached the lone guard remaining at the dungeon's entrance. "This is for the prisoner," he said in a gruff voice, mimicking the tone of the palace soldiers. The guard, eager to leave and assist his comrades with the fire, waved him through without much thought. Once inside the damp, cold cell, Tunica found Uyor chained to the wall, her eyes filled with defiance and despair. She was shocked to see him, her emotions a whirlwind of anger and hope. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "I'm here to right my wrongs," Tunica whispered, pulling a key from his belt. "I'll explain later, but you must trust me." Uyor hesitated for a moment before nodding. Tunica unlocked her chains, and as the heavy metal fell to the ground, Uyor's frost began to swirl around her in response to her heightened emotions. "Not now," Tunica cautioned, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We need to get out quietly." Tunica had spent days studying the palace layout, searching for an escape route. He led Uyor through a series of hidden corridors known only to the royal family. The passages were dark and narrow, but they led to the stables at the edge of the palace grounds. There, Nkechi was waiting with 2 horses saddled and ready. She handed Tunica a bundle of supplies, her expression stern but supportive. "Go quickly," Nkechi urged. "The fire won't distract them for long." As they rode into the night, Tunica and Uyor could hear the distant sound of alarms. The king's men had discovered her escape and were in pursuit. Uyor, sensing the urgency, summoned her powers. A sudden frost covered the ground behind them, making it slippery and slowing the soldiers' horses. Tunica glanced back in awe but urged her forward. "We can't stop now." Tunica led Uyor to a small abandoned hut deep in the forest, far from the palace. They hid there, catching their breath and planning their next move. Tunica knew their freedom was temporary. His father would not rest until Uyor was captured. As they sat in the flickering firelight, Tunica finally spoke, his voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry for everything. For lying to you, for bringing you into this. But I won't let my father harm you. I will protect you, even if it costs me everything." Uyor, though wary, could see the sincerity in his eyes. She nodded, knowing that their journey was far from over but feeling, for the first time, that she wasn't alone in her fight. Their escape was fraught with peril. soldiers pursued them through dark forest, arrows slicing the air. Uyor, driven to desperation, tapped into her powers like never before. A blizzard engulfed the palace grounds, freezing soldiers in their tracks and sealing King Akbar in a tomb of ice. But the cost was great. Uyor's frost-bitten hands trembled, and her eyes brimmed with tears. When the storm settled, Tunika and Uyor faced the truth: their love was doomed. Tunika, burdened by his father's sins, chose exile, vowing to redeem his family's name. Uyor returned to Ebu, her heart scarred but resolute. Back in the village, her arrival was met with fear and awe. But Uyor refused to hide any longer. She used her powers to defend Ebu from bandits, bringing snow to cool the land during droughts. Slowly, the villagers' fear turned to admiration. They crowned her their queen, the Snow Queen of Ebu. Though her heart yearned for Tunika, Uyor found solace in her purpose. Her story became legend, a tale of betrayal, survival, and the courage to embrace one's destiny. And every year, as snow fell gently on Ebu, the villagers remembered the girl who defied the odds to protect her home.